I never imagined a janitor's act of kindness would lead to life-changing revelations. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The morning light streamed through the grimy school windows, bathing everything in a dull yellow glow. I was sitting at my desk, the weight of the world crushing my chest. Tears threatened to spill. I was drowning in my problem school, friends who seemed distant, a family that didn't understand. That day felt heavier than usual. But something strange hung in the air. It was like the universe was pulsing, waiting. I glanced at the janitor, Mr. Wells, shuffling down the hallway with a big, tattered mop. His hands were worn, and his eyes held secrets, shadows of stories untold. Everyone always wrote him off, ignored him, but I felt a pull, a connection. Why did he look so familiar? My heart raced. As I watched him, something inside me whispered that he was more than just a janitor. Was it the way he caught my gaze and nodded, or was it the gentle smile he offered, laced with kindness? That small gesture felt like a lifeline in my swirling chaos. The world around me grew silent, and I could hear my heartbeat pounding. Just then, a loud crash echoed through the hall. A group of boys had knocked over a stack of lockers, a whirlwind of chaos erupting at that moment. They laughed, no concern for the mess they'd made or the people they could hurt. But Mr. Wells didn't flinch. He stepped forward, calm amidst the storm, a cloak of dignity wrapped around him. I watched as he bent down, picking up various pieces of trash and debris with a purpose. My heart ached for him. I rose from my chair, feeling an urge to join him, make him feel seen. But my feet felt heavy. My throat tightened, and that lump returned. Did he ever get tired of the indifference? Then, just as I took a step forward, I heard a whisper in the wind. Something captured my attention. It was a strange shimmer under the broken fluorescent lights, glinting among the wreckage. Curiosity bubbled within me, a flicker of hope amidst the dread of the day. What was it? My body screamed to discover. I glanced at Mr. Wells. He seemed oblivious. Maybe he was used to the magic hidden in plain sight that I approached, caught between fear and excitement. My hands trembled, reaching down to pry the object from the debris. It was cold and metallic, reflecting fragments of light, shimmering like secrets. Mr. Wells watched me with a knowing look, and suddenly, the world stood still again. I felt a pull, a connection to that janitor, the object, and my purpose. What was happening? The bell rang, pulling me back to reality. I clutched the mysterious object tightly, my heart racing. What did this mean? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the bell's harsh tone faded into the distance, I stood there clutching the glimmering item, my fingers brushing against its cool surface. Curiosity wrestled with apprehension, and flashes of adrenaline surged through my veins. What on earth was I supposed to do with this? Could it be something meaningful, or was I simply grasping at illusions amidst my chaos? Mr. Wells shifted slightly, his gaze piercing through my turmoil with an understanding that seemed out of place for a janitor. You found something, didn't you? He asked, his voice like gravel, yet gentle. The heaviness in my chest eased just a fraction. I nodded, too entranced by the object to articulate my thoughts. It was an old keychain, tarnished yet elegant, shaped delicately into a heart. I thought of how whimsical and yet profound that shape felt, and my muddled feelings spun faster. You can let it guide you, Mr. Wells said, a gentle smile spreading across his weathered face. It might just unlock something you've been searching for. Before I could respond, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around to see Jenna, a friend from school, her brow furrowed as she eyed the keychain. What's that? She asked, her tone a mixture of jealousy and intrigue. Just, something I found, I replied, unsure of whether to share its significance. The warmth of Mr. Wells's words lingered, yet doubt crept back in. What if it meant nothing? What if the only treasure was my own longing for connection? Jenna's skepticism turned to dismissal. You could probably get $100 for that on eBay, she laughed. I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. The weight of her laughter pressed down like a stone. In that moment, I stood at a threshold. Was I going to let someone else's opinion shape my discovery? I clutched the keychain tighter, feeling its contours against my palm. No, I think it's more than that, I replied, my voice surprising even me with its certainty. The moment felt electric, a surge of defiance washing over my previous timid self. I didn't know why, but something about this small charm felt like a piece of a much larger puzzle I had yet to see. Whatever, Jenna shrugged, her indifference even louder than her previous laughter as she turned away to join her friends, leaving me isolated in my thoughts like a forgotten whisper. Yet Mr. Wells lingered, galvanized by an inner strength. Sometimes the things that seem insignificant hold more weight than we realize, he said softly, his eyes twinkling like the keychain. Trust yourself to find that weight. And remember, it's not about what others see, but what you hold within. That I took a deep breath, courage blooming where fear had taken root. If only I could muster that bravery when facing my family or my friends. The fragility of acceptance so easily shattered by a few careless words, but home loomed on the horizon, a storm of unpredictability always waiting. As I walked through the old corridors, a sudden burst of laughter drew my attention. I paused at the classroom doors, where an incident earlier that day replayed in my mind. A bitter verbal skirmish with my brother surfaced, the hurtful words still ringing like a bell in my ears. Why can't you just be normal? He had snapped at me, as if there was a standard measure of existence I was failing to meet. I thought of the weight of that statement, the isolation it created, how it wedged itself between us like a cracked stone against my heart. That day I had knelt in the dark, wrestling with the same insecurities that plagued me, questioning if I would ever feel like I belonged anywhere. Something fluttered inside me, a flicker of recognition. It echoed the familiarity I had felt towards Mr. Wells, a voice inside that whispered to rise above the debris of doubt. But was I strong enough? Suddenly, as I turned to leave, I overheard a fragment of a conversation from the group just a few feet away. And the new family is moving into that creepy old place on Willow Street, one of them giggled, followed by a shared hush of excitement. A chill ran down my spine. I knew that house. I stared at the floor. Feeling my breath hitch, the soft warmth that had ignited in my heart now replaced with a heavy dread. The house had been abandoned for years, but I could still see it in my mind, shadows whispering through cracked windows, secrets buried within its haunting memories. What were they moving there for? And why did the thought dredge up feelings of panic? Hey, are you coming? A voice pulled me from my thoughts, and I turned to see Mr. Wells watching me, concern etched in the lines of his face. Yeah, I started, but the words felt lost, snatched by the whirlwind of my racing thoughts. Would this be the catalyst to finally confront my fears, or would it drag me deeper into the murky depths I had fought so hard against? He'll see you around, he said, stepping back as if sensing my turmoil. But his eyes held a spark of something, an encouragement woven in silence, as if telling me that even in the darkest corners, flickers of light still existed. As I stepped outside, the weight of uncertainty settled deep in my chest, harmonizing with the lingering worries about the old house. The day had barely begun to dissolve before my heart raced into unknown territory, teetering on the brink of fear and the promise of discovery. And just as I turned down the path leading home, a loud crash echoed behind me, a voice calling my name, urgent and resonant. Would it be the warmth that cuts through the cold, or another broken bone to mend? As I braced myself for whatever awaited me on the path home, the sense of dread tangled with anticipation. I had barely taken 3 steps when Jenna reappeared, her eyes wide and breathless. You have to come back. Something's happened, she said, urgency spilling from her voice like waves crashing onto the shore. What? What is it? I stammered, my heartbeat quickening in response to her fear. The old house on Willow Street, she whispered, a flicker of disbelief flashing across her features. I saw someone standing there, someone we know. She hesitated, gauging my reaction, as if waiting for the weight of her words to sink in. Every nerve in my body went taut. The moment spent in anxious contemplation about that house replayed, and now it felt as though fate intertwined with my worst fears. "Who?" I asked, my voice barely audible, as those long-buried memories stirred and wove through my thoughts like smoke. Jenna leaned closer, her breath ghosting over my ear like an intimate secret. "It's Derek. He was there, looking inside. I think he was with someone too, I couldn't see clearly." Derek. My brother's best friend. The guy who had been in my life since middle school, a constant presence who shared in both laughter and the sting of my brother's harsh judgments. Anxiety twisted in my stomach. What could bring them to that darkened house? Did he know I was struggling? Did he even care? "Let's go. Right now." The words burst out before I could second-guess myself, fueled by a mix of fear and determination. I didn't wait for Jenna's reaction. I turned on my heel, my heart pounding like the rhythm of a war drum as I sprinted back towards the familiar streets leading to the ominous structure. With every step, memories crashed into me, home movies of sun-drenched summer spent hanging around the backyard, the laughter shared over pizza and late-night video games, all juxtaposed against the sobering silence of my brother's rejections. I found myself approaching the decrepit facade of the old house, the gnarled branches of its ancient trees looming like sentinels guarding untold secrets. As I approached, an old wooden sign creaked under the weight of the wind, bending to the will of something unseen. The door shuddered on its hinges, splintered and peeling. A hesitant shout fell from my lips. "Derek. Are you in there?" Silence followed, thick and heavy, until I caught a flicker of movement through a window. "It's not safe," Jenna hissed, tugging at my sleeve. But amidst layers of caution, the spark of hope ignited. Maybe this was the moment I had long awaited, a chance to confront not just my fear of the house, but also the distance that drifted between Derek and me. "Maybe I can talk to him," I muttered, half to myself. "See if he understands how I feel." With my heart hammering, I pressed forward, ignoring every instinct urging me to flee. The door groaned as I pushed it open, revealing the musty interior awash in shadows. Dust motes danced in the flickering light like ethereal spirits wandering through time. "Derek?" My voice echoed, and I strained to decipher the subtle sounds that punctuated the silence. A painting hung askew on the wall, warped by time, an ill omen of everything that had been left unattended. Suddenly, out of the gloom, I heard a voice, Derek's voice, low but unmistakable. "We can't be here," he said, a tremor slicing through his words. "I told you it's not safe." That I took a step closer, my breath caught in my throat as a flicker of movement pulled my gaze toward the shadows. In that gut-wrenching moment, I saw him not alone, but standing beside someone I recognized all too well. It was Rachel, the popular girl from school with a smile that could disarm anyone. The realization hit me like ice water. What was he doing here with her? My pulse quickened as I stepped backward, caught between heartbreak and anger. Jenna, sensing my turmoil, watched me with concern, but I couldn't look away from the ghostly scene unfolding. Did Derek really find solace in someone like Rachel? A powerful wave of betrayal surged through me, mixing painfully with my desperate yearning for connection. A thrill of betrayal coiled in my stomach, and my heart split down the middle. "Derek, you've got to leave. It's haunted." I felt it. Rachel urged, her voice high and tremulous, echoing through the shadows. I felt the air suffocate around me, thick with the weight of unspoken truths. What had drawn them here? And why now? My heart felt hollow, a gaping chasm reminded of how alone I had felt while silently watching Derek share every laugh and moment of camaraderie with my brother. Just then, I stepped on a warped floorboard, the noise like thunder in the stillness. Both Derek and Rachel turned, their eyes widening as they recognized me standing there in the doorway. "Ben. What are you doing here?" Derek's voice cut through the air, heavy with surprise and something else, an edge of guilt. "What are you both doing here?" I shot back, the sharpness of my tone surprising even me. Then, before I could demand answers, the house suddenly groaned around us, a deep rumble reverberating through the walls. My heart raced, instinctive fear clawing at the back of my mind. Shadows flickered, curling as if alive, and unseen forces toyed with the hinges of my sanity. What was that? Rachel whispered, her bravado evaporating. That I think we should go now, Derek said, stepping toward me. But I stood frozen in place, tangled in a web of vulnerability and questions. And just as I felt the ground beneath me shift, a desperate thought hit me. Was at a precipice, terrified yet exhilarated, standing face to face with the ghosts of my past, my fears and hopes bleeding into each other like the colors of a washed-out painting. The old house was alive with its secrets, yet here we were, me brother, his friend, and the ghost of what could have been, all stacked precariously in the balance. Wait, don't go, I shouted as the rumble intensified, shaking the walls. I needed to know, but before another word could escape my lips, the room erupted into darkness, the shadows swallowing everything whole, dragging me down into the depths of uncertainty and revelation, the space between us stretching like a yawning chasm. The darkness enveloped me, an all-consuming void that stifled sound and light. I felt a pang of panic, my lungs constricting as the very air around me thickened. In what could only be the aftermath of shock, my mind raced. The last thing I saw was Derek's face, confusion woven into his features, caught between two worlds, not just the chaos of the dilapidated house but also the world outside, the world where our lives diverged. I screamed into the abyss, but my voice echoed back, a hollow reminder of my own growing isolation. I stumbled blindly, feeling the rough wall against my fingertips, the dust-slicked surface as unsettling as the churning in my gut. Had they left me behind? Their presence felt like a fading heartbeat, and I feared being swallowed whole by my own fears. Suddenly, a flicker of light emerged, a dull glow that pulsated like a heartbeat against the dark. I reached out toward it, yearning for connection, hope, anything to pull me back to solid ground. As I moved closer, my fingers brushed against what felt like the banister of a staircase. Heart pounding, I dared to ascend. With each hesitant step upward, I became increasingly aware of the peeling wallpaper, the colors faded yet beautiful, remnants of a life still clinging to the walls. The house felt like a breathing entity, suffused with whispers of the past mingling with the present. I could almost hear stories woven into the fabric of this old, decaying place, longing to be told. As I reached the top landing, the light intensified, spilling through a cracked window, illuminating dust particles swarming like hidden memories. It felt warm and inviting. It was in that moment, amidst the chaos and confusion, I stumbled upon a small room at the end of the hallway, the door ajar. My heart raced as I pushed the door open, the hinges creaking in an eerie response. The inside was bathed in light, and the sight before me was surreal. A flicker of familiarity washed over me as I walked in, heart racing. Vintage furniture was draped in dusty sheets, pictures of smiling faces framed elegantly on the walls, artifacts of lives once lived. A small desk in the corner caught my attention, littered with letters and photographs. I cautiously approached, the desire to connect overcoming my earlier fears. As I leaned closer, I realized each handwritten note was addressed to someone named Clara. Love letters filled with longing, adorned by the playful scrawl of a boy who would only ever remain naive to the weight of unfulfilled dreams. My heart sank as I grasped the enormity of the moments captured on the pages. They were stories of unrequited love, of sorrow and hope intertwined, resonating painfully within me. I had come here expecting answers regarding Derek and Rachel, yet the weight of history bore down on my shoulders like a boulder, revealing the layers of my own hidden desires and regrets. Suddenly, the shadows curled tighter, whispering secrets that sunk deep into me, echoing in chambered reflections of my own life. Just then, I heard a distinct sound, the creaking of the house responding to new footfalls. Panic flared. Had Derek and Rachel returned? Or was it something worse? I turned sharply, heart in my throat, and breathed a sigh of relief when I saw it was merely a figure emerging from the Shadowsa janitor, aged and stooped, clutching a broom and dustpan. Surprise flashed across his weathered face, but unlike the unsettling presence of the house, he radiated warmth. Didn't expect to find anyone here, he said, his voice gentle, as if trying to soothe restless spirits. This old place has its secrets, doesn't it? I was looking for someone. My voice trembled, the truth spilling out. My brother's friend, Derek. And Rachel. They were just here, but now it's all a mess. The words tumbled out, heavy with frustration and grief. The janitor nodded knowingly. This house has a way of amplifying what we hide. It reveals the truths we're too scared to face. He paused, scanning my face. You're holding more than you realize, young man, what do you know? I demanded, but there was a flicker of something in the old man's eyes, a glimmer of understanding that softened my tone. Not much more than you do, he replied, but sometimes, simple acts of kindness from unexpected places can lead to profound revelations. And you must ask yourself what truths are waiting for you to uncover. His words hung in the air, filling the void left by my unanswered questions. Perhaps this man was right. Choice and acceptance could very well lead me to what I sought. As I stood wavering between the past and present, the house let out a loud groan, a cacophony of wood and rust like the exhalation of a deep sigh. With a sudden whoosh, the wind surged through the cracks, rattling the frames, and the familiar sounds of Derek's voice filtered into the room. Ben! Where are you? I bolted toward the door, desperation clawing at me. But in that fleeting moment, the janitor's hand rested gently on my arm, holding me back. Sometimes, you need to confront your fears head-on. The answers lie not in running away, but rather in embracing what scares us most. With those words echoing in my mind, the house suddenly tremored, and the turmoil within pushed me into the doorway. No! I shouted, breaking free from his grasp. I rushed down the hallway, heart racing not towards fear, but toward the urgency of revelation. As I burst into the main room, the floor shook beneath me, and for the first time, I felt clarity amidst chaos. Derek! I yelled, but as I turned, I found not just my brother's friend, but an unexpected twist swirled in the air. For there, in the corner by the window, stood a delicate figure, hidden partly by shadows, a woman with familiar features, her essence drifting softly toward me as if she had been waiting just for this moment. I gasped, the air catching in my throat when recognition hit. Mom. The light flickered, casting jagged shadows that danced between moments. I was caught in a suspended reality, grappling with disbelief, the swirl of turmoil within me intensifying. Mom. I whispered again, as if saying her name would shatter the illusion, yet in doing so, it only solidified the truth standing before me. She looked the same as I remembered, yet so profoundly changed. Her hair, once vibrant and full, now appeared dulled by time and heartache, and the lines etched on her face told stories of battles fought and lost, a silent testament to the years that had stretched between our last embrace and this bewildering reunion. Ben, her voice was a gentle caress, soft yet deeply echoing, as if she were trying to breach the distance that had defined our relationship. I thought you'd never come back here. I didn't know, my words sprang forth, frantic and unrefined. The last time we saw each other, it was a storm, she finished, a haunted look passing through her eyes, mimicking the chaos in my heart. And then the silence. I thought you'd chosen to leave it all behind, the connection fragmented like shattered glass, each piece reflecting years of longing, hurt, and unanswered questions. I didn't choose to leave you, I protested in a choked voice. I had to survive. Her eyes softened, empathy washing over her features, yet shadows lingered, remnants of unhealed wounds swirling beneath the surface. We all had to survive, Ben. But sometimes survival comes at the cost of connection. I took a hesitant step forward, my heart pounding fiercely against the reality of her words. But you were gone. You chose to walk away. Or perhaps I never truly left, she countered, voice trembling like the fragile threads of a web still holding on. Sometimes, our ghosts cling harder than the living. As the weight of her truth sank in, my resolve flickered. What was I really afraid of? The fear of her absence, or the impact it had on my life? The shards of reality felt overwhelming, even the walls of the house, a once familiar sanctuary, now closed in on me, reminiscent of choices unmade and loves unrealized. Without warning, the house shuddered, a violent tremor reverberating through its very foundations. My heartbeat synced with the rhythm of the chaos that surrounded us, and I felt disoriented. Just as I began to process the reunion with her, the shadows deepened, darkness coiled around us, a reminder that even amidst budding connections, demons still lurked just out of sight. Ben, listen to me, she urged, her voice honest yet tinged with urgency. Time feels like an endless loop when we refuse to reconcile the past. You need to confront what lies within. Suddenly, the door creaked open wider, revealing Derek, his face etched with confusion and fear. "Ben, what's happening? We need to get out of here." He halted mid-sentence upon seeing my mother, his eyes darting between us, grappling with the implications that I felt torn. The man I had gone in search of was now a stranger in a narrative I had yet to fully understand. His urgency tugged at my instincts to flee, to abandon this emotional whirlwind. But at the same time, my mother's presence grounded me with something almost ethereal. "Ben, I'm here because there are pieces of us that still need healing," she said tenderly, stepping closer, reaching out as if trying to bridge time without the touch of flesh. Derek shifted uneasily, and I sensed the tension in the air thrumming like a taut string. "We can't stay. This place isn't safe." His voice was rising, anxiety cascading through his words. "Derek, wait," I pleaded, feeling mobilized by an intense yearning to untangle this web between us. "I need to understand." The ground vibrated beneath my feet again, a visceral reminder that chaos was not simply external, it was a storm raging within me. My gaze danced between me brother's friend, my anchor in the living world, and my mother, a ghost of the past now resurrected before my eyes. With a shaky breath, I found my voice, trembling yet resolute. "I won't let fear make this decision for me anymore. I need to know why you left, Mom. I need to know why this fear of connection has haunted me for so long." Tears glittered in her eyes, a storm of her own sentiments brewing within. Sometimes the truth feels more terrifying than facing the void they leave in our hearts. A new tremor rippled through the house, and just as anxiety threatened to engulf me whole, I caught sight of the janitor standing at the threshold, an observer to our unfolding drama, his presence comforting. "It's time," he said gently, echoing the room's tumultuous energy, "for truths long buried to rise. But you must choose to dig them up, to confront the hurt that binds you." Suddenly, a crash echoed from the far end of the house, splintering wood and glass. The question burned through me, sharp and impending: what lay beyond? And even more so, what truths would emerge if I chose to face them? "Ben, we need to go." Derek grabbed my shoulder, his grip firm yet gentle, drawing my attention back to him, the urgency in his features palpable. But my mother's gaze held me captive, the love and fear intersecting in a way that sent chills down my spine. "You can still choose," she whispered, the shadows around her flickering like dying embers. Time stretched around us, 2 lives entwined with countless unspoken words, while Derek's plea pressed at my back, a reminder to move forward, to escape. I was at a crossroads, weighted by the decision looming heavy in the air. Just then, an otherworldly sound reverberated through the entire house, a melody of laughter, of a time before, intertwined with fragments of our memories that stitched us together by threads of longing. "Will you embrace the truth?" My mother's voice implored above it all, threading through my thoughts like a lifeline, and in that heartbeat, amid the intensity and chaos, I found myself suspended between 2 worlds, caught in a moment of decision that held the power to transform everything. The laughter faded, replaced by the ominous creak of the house, as if it were exhaling the weight of unspoken histories. I blinked, the reality pressing in around me, the dichotomy of my mother's presence clashing with Derek's urgency, each pulling me in starkly different directions. "Ben, please," Derek's voice trembled, fear glistening in his eyes. "I know this is overwhelming, but we can't stay here. Let's just get out." And yet, a tugging in my heart made me hesitate. It was as though the shadows whispering of heartache and misunderstandings could also speak of healing if only I dared to listen. My mother's ashen complexion contrasted sharply against the dark wood and peeling wallpaper of the room, and I felt the weight of her unyielding gaze, a silent plea that resonated deeply in my soul. But before I could respond, a sharp crack split the silence, and a shard of plaster rained down upon us. The tremor escalated, the walls trembling, and an icy gust of wind blew in from the broken door, flooding the space with a sense of impending collapse. The very foundation of this house, the monument to our fractured past, threatened to give way. "Ben." Derek's grip tightened, urgency infusing his words. "We need to go now, before it's too late." The conflict inside me swelled, a fierce storm eclipsing any rational thought. I glanced back at my mother, whose eyes shimmered with a longing I had feared missing in the years apart. I could feel her desperation reaching out, coinciding with a love I had buried deep within me, a love that had always been tinged with resentment for the absence she had left. That I can't abandon this us, I murmured hesitantly, torn between my past and the future Derek represented. You can't fix the past, Ben. Derek exclaimed, his voice now rising above the rumble around us. You have to start fresh. You have me. Let's go, then what? I challenged, my heart startling with every word. Live with the questions. With the pain of never knowing, but before Derek could fire back, the room shook violently. The walls seemed to groan under the pressure of all our unaddressed conflicts. At that moment, I felt akin to the house itself standing on the brink of collapse, holding years of buried memories and regrets. Ben, my mother whispered, her voice barely audible, laden with the weight of a lifetime's worth of burdens. You deserve to heal and to remember the love we shared, the connection we had before the storm. Don't you want to know the truth? Frankly, the answer hovered like a ghost in my stomach. I wanted to know, desperately. The aching yearning that came from being deprived of understanding clawed at my insides, yet another part of me felt petrified of what that truth might entail. Just then, an inexplicable warmth enveloped the chaos, and the janitor stepped forward. He seemed unbothered by the crumbling foundation that surrounded us, his eyes infused with an unwavering steadiness. Sometimes facing the past gives you the power to reshape your future, he said softly, pausing as if waiting for the clarity of each word to sink in. Connection requires courage and honesty. You won't find peace running away from it, but as I opened my mouth to respond, another violent jolt emitted from the house, rattling the floor beneath us, the air thick with tension and fear. The edges of my vision blurred as adrenaline coursed through my veins. The space had now transformed into a battleground of emotions, our voices the artillery firing rounds of unaddressed grief and longing. Ben. Derek's voice grew sharper, urgency coloring his tone with a tinge of panic. What if we don't get out? Don't you want to be okay? A noise outside, a faint scraping, followed by a cold rush through the atmosphere sent a chill down my spine. My heart raced, uncertainty gnawing at the edges of my reasoning as I finally tore myself away from my mother's pleading eyes, focusing instead on Derek. What about you? You've been my anchor. What happens to you if we don't leave now? Instead of responding, Derek could only shake his head, fear flashing across his face. I knew that if we left now, the truth would remain locked away, buried beneath the rubble of all we'd endured. This haunting house had unearthed a longing I had thought barren. Ben, listen to me. My mother urged again, desperation slicing through the turmoil of our surroundings. You will always be stronger than you think. The truth, even if painful, can guide you. As I stood suspended between two worlds, the chaos erupting around us and the tenderness of a mother's plea, chilling realization dawned upon me. The choice wasn't simply between escaping and confronting. It was about understanding the fragile ties that had brought us here, but before I could voice my thoughts, the door burst open, and beyond the threshold, a figure loomed. A silhouette backlit by the fading light, with a glint of something metallic in their hand. My breath caught in my throat, caught between the fear of the approaching unknown and the ties of old reminders threatening to unfold. Get back! Derek shouted, stepping protectively in front of me, though the terror echoing in his voice mirrored my internal struggle. Even as the storm of emotions clamored for clarity, one potent question echoed like a haunting refrain in the depths of my mind. Who was this new arrival, and what truth could they unveil? Even as the house around us began to crack and weep. The figure stepped into the doorway, casting an elongated shadow across the cracked floorboards, heightening the tension that flourished in the air. My heart raced as Derek steadied himself, eyes darting between me and the interloper, while my mother took a small step back, her expression vacillating between fear and recognition. Who are you? I heard myself ask, the tremor in my voice betraying the calm I desperately tried to maintain. The stranger hesitated before speaking, their silhouette shifting under the dying light. I'm here to find answers, they said, their voice low but steady. When they took a step forward, the metallic object in their grasp gleamed, a key, heavy with significance, as though it had been fashioned from our shared memories and regrets. "I'm here for the truth about her," they added, tilting their head toward my mother. The air around us thickened, and I felt as though I had just stumbled upon some ancient enigma that had laid in wait for years. "What do you mean?" I pressed, glancing anxiously at Derek, whose protective stance appeared somewhat futile against the weight of what this intruder represented. "It's not just about your past, Ben, but also hers," the stranger spoke, taking another cautious step into the room. Something about their presence flickered with familiarity, and the warmth of the janitor's words resonated in my mind. "I'm a friend of your mother's, or at least I was. I came because the truth doesn't belong to just one person, it's shared among those who seek it." That I felt my breath hitch, questions swirling like autumn leaves caught in a tempest. "Who are you?" The words spilled out, impatient and desperate for answers. Every second that ticked by felt like a betrayal of all that I longed to grasp, off a belonging I had forged with both my mother and Derek. "My name is Alyssa," the figure said, raising the key as if it were an offering. The vast chasm of confusion was only widening. "I was friends with your mother before everything changed. This key, it's the key to a place you both need to visit. A chance to uncover what was lost." A flicker of reconnection ignited within the depths of my being. I remembered early summer days, endless laughter that wrapped around my heart like a warm embrace, and a soothing voice reading me bedtime stories. "What do you mean change?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling with both fear and anticipation. Before Alyssa could respond, the house trembled again. The walls reverberated with a groaning sound, and I could feel them vibrating with the weight of memories longing to break free. "Whatever secrets are locked within these walls, it's time to confront them," she said, urgency flashing in her eyes. "We're running out of time." Derek pulled me back slightly, his breath quick and shallow against the chaos, willing me to disregard it all for safety's sake. "We should go, Ben. We can't stay here any longer." He looked at me, panic deepening the shadows on his face. "I don't want to lose you." Just as I felt the tides of uncertainty crashing against my heart, my mother stepped forward, her voice trembling yet resolute. "You have to decide, Ben. The truth is buried within these walls, intertwined with our history. But you also need to know that love doesn't vanish, it shifts and evolves." Her words dug into my consciousness, churning the waters of my conflicted thoughts. 6 years of lost time, of unanswered questions, and the grief that had settled uncomfortably deep into my bones. I looked at my mother, her face a tapestry of regret and longing. I looked at Derek, his expression a fortress of fear and loyalty. And then, there was Alyssa, the stranger bearing the key to unseal the chains around my past. "That I don't want to lose any of you," I whispered, a shiver of realization coursing through me like the rising storm outside. "Then we have to face this together," Alyssa urged. "The past won't change just because we hide from it. But we might discover something worth holding on to." But as I took a step forward, the tremors of the house intensified, amplifying the disarray unfolding in my heart. I felt the shadows encroaching, absorbing the light and hope around us, whispering warnings of impending despair. The lights flickered overhead, plunging the room into momentary darkness before brightening again, revealing my mother's eyes glistening with unshed tears and direct strained expression, the heaviness weighing down all of us. I couldn't help but think that unearthing these secrets might not only reconstruct the cracked foundation of our past but might also obliterate the fragile hope I had built for the future. Suddenly, the floor beneath us creaked ominously, vibrating with a heartfelt urgency, and without warning, a rogue piece of drywall fell, crashing to the ground between me and Derek. And in that fleeting moment, I knew no matter which path I chose, there would be no going back. A thunderous roar echoed from outside, the sound of storm clouds gathering perhaps, but within the chaos of my heart, I heard a singular voice calling out, guiding me towards an unseen fate. "Ben!" Derek shouted, reaching for me, but I felt the pull of something irrevocable drawing me closer to Alyssa. "Will you come with me?" she implored, holding out the key, the weight of our intertwined fates palpable in the air. Desperation painted my surroundings an impossible hue of longing. As I reached for the key, the room erupted in chaos, flashes of memories flickering against each other, the bittersweet warmth of nostalgia battling the bitter sting of regret and unhealed wounds. In that moment, everything felt fragile and precarious, like standing on the precipice of a gaping chasm, and as the earth beneath trembled again, the question echoed within the walls of my heart: could I truly embrace the weight of the past if it meant risking the last whispers of my present? The air was thick as I stood there, the world around me a blurred collage of past and present colliding with sharp, unforgiving edges. My hand hovered in front of Alyssa, the key glinting like a beacon in the midst of the storm. Would it be the answer I desperately sought, or a curse that would shatter the fragile peace I had begun to build? Derek's grip tightened around my arm, as though his very presence could anchor me against the tempest swirling in my heart. "Ben, you don't have to do this," he said, his voice a low rasp filled with a mix of urgency and concern. "We can leave. We can forget this, just you and me." For a heartbeat, I imagined the escape running out into the wild embrace of the storm, leaving behind the shadows that had haunted my mother and me for far too long. But then the image of her tear-filled eyes surfaced, layered with the weight of grief and longing. I realized moments of escape were like fleeting shadows themselves. They were numbing, but they would never heal. "Ben, please," Derek pressed, desperation creeping into his tone. "We can find another way. Just don't lose yourself in whatever this is." But what did it mean to lose oneself? Was I not already a collection of broken pieces, fragments of a life shaped by pain and unanswered questions? As I looked into Derek's eyes, I could see he was fighting for my safety, but was my heart not worth the risk? A crackle of energy filled the room, and I glanced back at Alyssa, whose gaze was unwavering, filled with a mixture of anticipation and sorrow. In her expression lay the bittersweet complex tapestry of friendship and grief, betrayal and loyalty. "Ben, you are safer embracing the truth than living in a lie," she murmured as if she could sense my hesitation. I looked down at the key, my heart racing, not just from the weight it carried but from the pressing need to understand the driving force that had summoned me back to this house, this moment. The walls moaned again, this time more mournful, like the house itself lamenting the pain sealed within its bowels. "What's at the end of this road, Alyssa? What if we uncover something we can't bear?" I asked, needing to voice what pulsed beneath my skin. A deep breath escaped Alyssa, and a fleeting tenderness washed over her features. "Then we bear it together," she replied softly. "The past may hurt, but it's the only way we can find freedom. Will you trust me?" The echoes of her words collided with the shadows of what I had known life to be. Trust was an elusive thing that had slipped from my fingers too many times, but perhaps, in this moment, it was also an act of courage. I met Derek's pleading gaze, his eyes were pools of raw emotion, and I saw my reflection alongside doubt and fear. I wanted to believe him that we could just walk away from the past and emerge unscathed. But the pull of the unknown, of answers that could stitch the wounds we had worn for too long, was magnetizing. A creak sounded above us, almost like a sign from the universe, urging me to make a choice. This was my story, and it was time to take hold of it, past, present, uncertain future. Slowly, I reached for the key, the chill of its metal sending a shiver up my spine. In that moment, I felt the weight of an entire lineage of stories, ones I was bound to uncover, pain I was destined to face. As I grasped the key, a loud crash resonated from the back of the house. My heart thudded heavily, and in that moment of distraction, an instinctual shout erupted from Alyssa's lips: "We need to go, now." The urgency in her voice propelled me to move forward, but Derek pulled me back one last time. "Whatever you're doing, Ben, don't forget about us." Before I could respond, Alyssa was already darting toward the door, shoving it open as shards of wood rained down around us, as if the house itself was resisting our exit. I caught a brief glimpse of her determined expression before the world outside became a whirlwind of wind and rain, the storm wailing like a banshee set free. Derek's face paled, and I could feel him grappling with the fear that gripped him, fear for me, for us both. "You don't have to do this," he shouted again, desperation lacing his every word. But as I stepped into the storm-forged darkness, I couldn't shake the feeling that with each step, I was leaving behind something intangibly, an unpolished diamond of hope, or perhaps a freedom that had eluded us for too long. With the key clutched tightly in my fist, I turned to see the look in Derek's eyes one last time, another shattering silence pulling us apart, and that's when it happened. Just behind me, a loud rumble erupted from the very center of the house. No ordinary noise, but a thunderous awakening of memories begging to spill from their hidden cocoon. With a crack that sounded like an unforgiving whip, one of the walls collapsed inward, conspiring to cage us in this lost realm forever. In that frozen moment, a haunting realization swept through me. His was not just about answers or closure. The key represented the last thread binding us to the past. And with the walls coming down, I knew that holding on to love might also mean embracing chaos and uncertainty. As fear and trepidation weaved back into the tapestry of my heart, I found solace in the truth I couldn't hide any longer. The echoes of the life I had lived crashed against the life I desired, unsettled chaos begging for revelation in the storm. Ben. Came Derek's voice again, sharp and firm amid the chaos. Please, don't. Don't let go. But deep down, I was already beginning to understand what newly learned courage felt like. It wasn't absence of fear, but the acceptance of its presence alongside hope. And as the foundations of our past trembled, the drumming heartbeat of the future echoed loudly within me, drawing me into the unknown, finally tearing away the fabric of safety that had cloaked us for far too long. Let's go. I shouted back, the burst of trepidation igniting a flame. Numbers and moments converged to forge a singular path, no turning back. The storm raged around us, wind howling like a mournful spirit as we stumbled into the night. My fingers closed tightly around the key, its chill a reminder of the weight I now bore. In the chaos, I could hear Derek's voice, desperate and filled with dread, but I couldn't turn back. Not now, not when the darkness whispered promises of revelation. Alyssa was ahead, leading the way through the downpour, her silhouette a beacon of bravado against the storm. Every step felt like a defiance of gravity, each heartbeat pounding in unison with the chaotic symphony of nature. We plunged deeper into the night, the house crumbling behind us, a stark reminder of what we were escaping and what we might still have to face. Ben. Derek called, his footsteps echoing behind me. Each stride he took seemed to carry a weight heavier than before, a burden of hope and fear intertwined. If we're doing this, we need to commit. We can't split apart now. His words tugged at my heart, but part of me was already slipping away, drawn by the intoxicating promise of the unknown. The key felt like a firebrand against my palm, reminding me of my purpose. But what if that purpose led us down a path laced with more despair? Stay close, Alyssa called back to us. She was struggling against the wind, drawing on reserves of strength I admired yet feared for. In that moment, I glimpsed the fear flickering behind her determination, and it made my chest ache. As we reached the edge of the property, the darkness deepened, swallowing us whole. The trees swayed as if whispering secrets, shadows casting uncertainty in every direction. I could feel Derek's presence beside me, grounding me even in the whirlwind. Do you think we're truly safe out here? He asked, a tremor in his voice. Or are we just exchanging one prison for another? Either way, Alyssa replied, her voice steady. Well, figure it out together. I admired her tenacity, yet uncertainty gnawed at me. What if the revelations we sought amounted to more agony than courage? But even as those thoughts flitted through my mind, I knew I couldn't turn away. This path was laden with trepidation, yet it was our only way forward. As we trudged through the underbrush, a flicker of motion caught my eye, a shadow darting between the trees. I turned abruptly, adrenaline surging. Did you see that? Derek's expression shifted from anxiety to curiosity. See what? There was something, I insisted, heart racing. It looked like someone. Alyssa paused, scanning the dimly lit surroundings. I don't see anything. Maybe it's just the shadows playing tricks on us. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, monitored by unseen eyes. My heart raced at the thought, echoing the turmoil of my thoughts. In the midst of this chaos, I wrestled with the weight of my desires and fears, the complexity of every choice spiraling in tandem. Look, let's just keep moving, Derek said, his voice thick with uncertainty. The sooner we find a safe place to regroup, the better. With each step, the echo of his caution felt like a leash tethering me to reality. You're right, I agreed, though my mind was already spiraling. It was a soft glow that first caught my attention, a warm light flickering through the trees, illuminating the path before us. Over there, I pointed, leading us toward the glow, confusion mingling with hope. Let's check it out. It could be a shelter. We moved carefully toward the light, the air crackling with anticipation. It drew closer, revealing a small clearing where the tangled branches parted to reveal an old wooden shed, weathered but intact. The door hung askew, inviting yet ominous. Derek hesitated, looking back at the darkness swallowing the path behind us. Are you sure this is a good idea? Can you feel it? Alyssa asked softly, glancing at me as if searching for something. There's something here for us. Maybe it's what we need. I approached the door, adrenaline coursing through me. I could almost hear the hum of a promise vibrating beneath the surface, urging me forward. The door creaked open, revealing a dim, dust-covered interior. Inside, the scent of aged wood mingled with something else, a hint of warmth, an unmistakable feeling of home, of belonging. It felt strange, almost surreal amid the chaos outside. A single flickering bulb cast shadows across the floor, but what captured my attention was a series of shelves adorned with random objects, trinkets and memories that seemed charged with years of stories. Look at this, Alyssa whispered, picking up a small wooden carving that resembled an owl. Someone cared enough to bring their story here. Derek moved closer, glancing between the treasures, one of which was a dusty journal. This place is different, he mumbled, an edge of wonder creeping into his tone. My pulse quickened as I approached the journal, an old leather-bound tome, its pages yellowed and frayed. Slowly, I opened it, revealing a delicate script that danced across the pages, a story of someone who had endured darkness and found solace in the light. My heart sank as I recognized fragments that spoke of loss, recovery, and fleeting hope. Suddenly, a light crackled outside, the storm surging in intensity. The shadows in the room seemed to bloom and then contract with each gust of wind. A chill passed through me, as if the walls were alive with the energy of the past, urging me to uncover the truth buried deep within its pages. Ben. Derek's voice broke through my reverie. Are you okay? But I couldn't answer. As I turned the pages, something caught my eye, an inscription, a name I never expected to see, my mother's. Each letter echoed a pulse deep within me, awakening memories long buried. This journal, I breathed, heart pounding as realization settled over me like a heavy shroud. It belonged to her. Just then, the door swung open with a violent jolt, wind and rain pouring in, and there stood a figure silhouetted against the storm, a hooded form, drenched in the downpour, eyes fixated on me. Ben, the voice echoed, trembling with emotion. You need to come with me. There's so much you don't understand. I froze, recognition washing over me like a tidal wave. My breath hitched, a mix of dread and authenticity pounding in my ears. The walls around me constricted, and suddenly the storm wasn't the only thing threatening to unravel us. Everything I had sought, everything I thought I understood, all hung in the balance as uncertainty loomed dangerously close. The darkness outside and the revelations within danced an intricate waltz, leaving me teetering at the edge of something monumental. Who are you? I whispered, the tremor in my voice betraying the storm inside me as I faced the figure. A knowing smile broke through the shadows, and deep within those eyes lay a glimmer of destiny that I couldn't begin to fathom. And just like that, everything cracked open. The room felt like the eye of a storm, suspended in disbelief as I faced the figure enveloped in shadows, the familiar shape twisting into the contours of my long-forgotten past. Ben, he said again, his voice barely breaking above the roar of the storm outside, reverberating with an echo that felt almost sacred. You need to come with me. At that moment, memories surged like a powerful tide, threatening to drown me in their weight. I was caught in the snare of recognition and confusion, the realization of my desire for connection battling against the fear and loss that had colored my existence for so long. Was this really happening? How could someone I thought I had lost completely come back to pull me into a narrative I felt unequipped to handle? Why should I trust you? I shot back, driven by both caution and a desperate need to shield myself from further heartbreak. The room grew heavier, almost vibrating with tension, while Derek and Alyssa stood by, their presence both comforting and bewildering. The figure stepped into the light, revealing the contours of his face, a face I had longed to see, one that tugged at my heartstrings with the entirety of its unfulfilled legacy. "I'm your father," he revealed, each word polished by the desperation of past revelations. The air shifted, crackling with a sudden electricity that left me breathless. "Dad?" I murmured, grappling with disbelief. The memories surged again, an echo of laughter, warmth, fragments of time that had been stripped away like leaves from a tree. Yet the weight of absence throbbed in the air as well. How can you just waltz back into my life after all these years?" "I can't explain every choice that brought me here," he said, his voice dipping with remorse. "I lost my way, but I am here now." My heart fluttered painfully at the juxtaposition. Here was the man who had once been my world, now a ghost that drifted along the edges of my perceptions, a specter searching for redemption. "You left me," I whispered, the vulnerability spilling past my defenses. "All those nights, all those birthdays, you weren't there, I know. And I'm sorry. But I am here now, begging you to understand what I couldn't say back then," he said, his words heavy with desire and regret. "This house, it holds the key to so many truths. I promise you there is a path forward if you let me guide you." A storm was brewing, both outside and in my heart. Uncertainty wrestled with longing. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. Could I surrender to the hope of connection after everything that had transpired? The shifts around us felt all-encompassing, and for a flicker, I sensed the weight of our shared losses, the fractures of our souls. "Ben, we're with you," Derek said softly, stepping closer. "Whatever happens, don't let his presence frighten you into running away again. We can do this together. Do you know what it feels like to lose the core of your being?" I challenged Derek, casting a glance toward my father. The ache of my heart ignited every word I spoke. To have held tightly to memories that shape your existence only to watch them unravel. A gust of wind flung the door wide open, rattling the brittle frames of the room, but no amount of chaos outside could drown out the painful truths fizzling in the air. "But maybe those memories can guide you," my father interjected gently, "if you are willing to let them. What happened to me was a consequence of not facing my own shadows. I spent years living with regrets, yet here I am, wanting nothing more than to make things right." Emotion flooded through me, warmth of hope intertwined with the scars of betrayal. "All I ever wanted was to feel whole," I confessed, my voice laden with yearnings too fragile to ignore. "To belong and not be haunted by what could have been. All I can offer is an understanding of how to mend what has felt broken," he replied, reaching for me, his own vulnerability etched across his features like ancient symbols written under a starry sky. But in that instant of connection, the storm surged in ferocious anger, rattling the very foundation we stood upon. The walls around us gestured back as if desperate to chase away what was once lost, while a forbidding darkness began to coil anew. With trepidation, I stepped forward. This was my moment of truth. I could resonate with the depths of my heart, the thrumming pulse of unearthing wounds. "What do I need to do?" "You must embrace the past, Ben," my father said, his eyes shimmering with sincerity, the shadows bending in contradiction behind him. "We have to face it together, all that it holds. You have the key." And as I grasped the wooden key tighter, a sensation unfurled within me, distinct tugging of fate beckoning me to walk down a path unraveled, to confront the haunting shadows that danced through my dreams. This was a moment of surrender, of courage. The truth was not an enemy but a mirror reflecting the shards of clarity I so anxiously sought. "Let's go," I whispered to my father, my heart beating loudly against my chest. "Let's find out together." As we stepped from the threshold of the shed into the raw embrace of the storm, I felt a profound shift within me, a burgeoning comfort nestled between anxiety and warmth, the promise of connection rekindling my sense of self amidst the chaos of our fractured story. The rain dripped down like a gentle hymn against our skin, each droplet carrying away remnants of grief, myriad possibilities cascading upon us like a tender blessing. Behind me, Derek and Alyssa followed quietly, stepping into the unknown, a shared journey scintillating both with heartache and hope. And as I took my father's hand, feeling the warmth and urgency connect us, I understood the profound truth nestled in silence. No matter how heavy the past had been, the future awaited us like a blank page, ready to be written. With each step forward into the storm, I felt myself being pieced together again thread by tender thread interwoven with resilience, determination, and love, a tapestry imbued with the familiar and the profound. As the wind swirled around us, stirring the remnants of all that was lost, I finally understood the core of my journey. Embracing the truth could lead me home. And perhaps, at the intersection of forgiveness and acceptance, we could find a belonging stretched forever into tomorrows yet unwritten. With that thought anchoring me, we pressed onward through the tempest, willing to transform the remnants of our chaos into a legacy of love and understanding, the legacy that danced fiercely against the shadows, forever shining bright like a lighthouse against the storm. And among the roiling clouds and fervent hearts, the final revelation rang clear, echoing in my soul: home is where hope begins.